Run for Your Life, usually seen at this time, will not be presented tonight, so that we may bring you the following special program.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners.
His paintings redefined comic book heroes. His vision inspired a generation. The Legend of Kingdom Come is the definitive documentary on Alex Ross, known as the Norman Rockwell of comics.
It almost looked like Renaissance paintings, except for superheroes.
He makes them look like Olympian gods.
We go behind the scenes of his definitive graphic novel, Kingdom Come, now on Blu-ray, packed with exclusive interviews and unseen artwork. Order today at legendofkingdomcome.com.
If you're here at Word Balloon, it's because you like comics, creators, conversation, pop culture subjects. Would you consider joining the League of Word Balloon Listeners? Patreon.com/wordballoon. For just $3 a month or more, you'll get exclusive access to the Word Balloon e-magazine, featuring transcriptions of some of my best conversations. When you subscribe, you'll also be part of the Word Balloon Book Club, where Brian Michael Bendis and I will pick a comic every month to review and discuss live with the League on this show. Join the League today, patreon.com/wordballoon. Thank you always for your support, League of Word Balloon listeners. Welcome back, everybody. It's time again for another Word Balloon Scene Missing, where we take a look at a film and pick it apart. Appropriate, given that the film we're talking about today is titled Anatomy of a Murder, a fantastic 1959 courtroom drama, a great cast, and really happy to welcome a dear friend of mine. Good Lord, we've known each other for more than almost 35 years. I think actually 35 years. My good buddy from Days at the Loop, Days at the Score. It's Chicago radio legend, Dan McNeil. Good to see you, buddy.
Good to be seen. You know, you're a legend anytime you don't have a job. So I guess I've been a legendary figure for the last couple of years. Good to be with you, buddy. And good to talk about one of my all-time favorites, Otto Preminger from 1959, giving us the great Jimmy Stewart and Anatomy of a Murder. Looking forward to doing this with you.
Absolutely, man. There's Otto right there. Really interesting period for him in the 50s, especially because he really tested the mores of the day. Going back to The Moon is Blue, which was about an unmarried woman wanting to have a baby, and that was a big deal. And of course, The Man with the Golden Arm, about drug addiction, fantastic Frank Sinatra drama, and then this amazing film, Anatomy of a Murder. By the way, right off the bat, not only in this poster, but the title sequence as well. The great Saul Bass doing that animated title sequence and showing that I mean, you see it right there with the body and the shades and everything. He was really a big partner with Preminger, and a lot of his movies moving forward had his title sequences. That great political drama he made, Advice and Consent, about picking a new vice president and stuff. That was Saul Bass doing that stuff too. So I mean, that's the great thing. This movie really up and down. Not to mention the soundtrack. You know who did the soundtrack, don't you, buddy?
Hit me.
Right there. There he is, the great Duke Ellington.
Oh yeah.
And he has that great scene with him and Jimmy playing the piano and stuff. Yeah, I like to play jazz piano. Sure you do. Sure you do.
Paul Beagler, he'll play jazz piano with you, and then he'll take you trout fishing, and then he will set Lieutenant Mannion free.
Absolutely, I forgot about the fishing thing. Indeed, and Dan's a big fisherman. For those not familiar with his Chicago radio work, fishing is just as important to Dan as sports talk. In fact, you're about to go to Mexico for a nice little sea adventure, correct?
Yes, I plan on fishing the Pacific. I hope it is as blue as it is in my dreams next week a couple of times. Going to fish for eater fish one day, harvest fish, and then we're going to go after gigantic sea monsters the second day once we've had our bellies full. So I'm looking forward to doing that. I've never been to that part of Mexico, Puerto Vallarta, way down south. So it's going to be fun.
Outstanding. Fantastic. All right, back to Anatomy of the Murder. Barney Phillip. Well, Barney, what's his last name, Danny? You forget? Remember the owner, the guy, the victim, Barney.
Yeah,
Okay.
Barney Quill.
Barney Quill, everybody. Yes, Barney Quill has a bar, and Laura Manion comes in to frequent the bar, and Laura Manion, played by the lovely Lee Remick, who's a smoke show in this movie, really at her prime. I hate to be pervy that way, but she's a lovely woman and really was a great, wonderful actress. And this is cool because it's really early in her career. But she, despite being married to Ben Gazzara, who we saw in the opening promo of Run for Your Life, she likes to go to the bar and hang out and get flirty with the boys. Ben's a serviceman, and at one point, apparently, she and Barney are flirting with each other, and things get rough. She accuses Barney of rape and comes back home. Gazzara, in a fit of Lieutenant Manion, in a fit of rage, finds Barney and kills Barney Quill. And now the question is, is it murder but through temporary insanity? That's essentially the question that is being debated in the film and in the court. So it's and again, very controversial. My dad remembers he had told me when he's like, "You want to see this movie?" And this is one of those great movies that they would show late at night, especially in the pre-cable years, because of the sensitive nature of it being a rape case. So it would like play. I don't know about you, Dan, in Indiana, but I know in Chicago it would play like 1 a.m. And he's like, "We got to watch this movie," and I'm like, "Absolutely." My dad was great about it with the whole movie. Like, you've got to see this. And he's like, I remember this movie was banned in cities because it was such a sensitive subject.
Yeah, well, you forgot that the part of Indiana from which I hail is just on the tip of Chicago. So we grew up with Chicago television too. My dad wasn't up on the roof of the house trying to get a station from Louisville, Kentucky into our house. So
I understand. You're right. Shame on me.
yeah, but you're right. The film ran language that was somewhat unsanitized for the era. And George C. Scott, who played the young prosecuting attorney from the big town of Lansing, Michigan, he was a big city boy. He threw out the term underpants and then panties. And this is the first time film viewers had actually heard that type of language, and it was very sensitive because it was in a rape case. And you could cut the tension with a knife. Just watching the film many years later, you could tell that in its time, it was one of those movies that pushed the envelope in terms of the content. America wasn't quite ready for that. Hell, you were still a few years away from Easy Rider, which addressed, blatant drug abuse rather candidly, maybe for the first time in film history. So you had a lot of things playing off of each other that were first timers for Anatomy of a Murder. And man, I just think some of the individual performances are electrifying. You're a big fan of Lee Remick, and she was the sultry, saucy Laura Manion. You're tall, she says to Paul Beegler, who is Jimmy Stewart's character, the country attorney who is advised by an old drinking man, his pal Parnell. Of course, if you have an old advisor in a movie that involves the courtroom, he has to have a drinking problem, right? And that's exactly what he does. But it's a very thick plot. It's a very relatable film, and I enjoy it. I watch it probably every couple of years. I'll give it a spin. I have not seen it in the last year or so, so I'm due for Anatomy of a Murder.
But you've got a good memory for it, and that's great. Parnell, Arthur O'Connell, a wonderful character actor that has done a lot of great work. And really, you watch something like this, and even a Few Good Men decades later, And yeah, the defense lawyer always has his team. So you've got Parnell, and then you've also got the great Eve Arden as his wise ass secretary, and also kind of a mother figure to him. And I love Eve Arden. Eve Arden is always great, whether it's a straight up comedy or drama. She would always nail it, and has that right bit of smartass, and really was this modern woman. Even going back to Christ, the movies she made with the Marx Brothers. I want to say it was either Animal Crackers or Monkey Business, and just had that great smartass thing that she had really for her whole life. I love Our Miss Brooks, where she's a smartass school teacher and stuff. Just a brilliant woman that I don't think gets the due decades later that she should. I mean, she was making Our Miss Brooks at the same time as I Love Lucy. In fact, I think it was produced by the I Love Lucy people and Desi Arnaz and everybody. Great stuff. But no, she's great. And that's the great thing about this movie. It's just such a great showcase for all these other character actors like Arthur O'Connell and Eve Arden.
Eve Arden was quite a distinguished woman in Anatomy of a Murder. She pretty much ran the law firm. She kept Counselor Beegler in line, and she had to handle the books. And he was a guy who was far more interested in heading down to the stream than he was getting his next retainer fee from a client, because he was clearly on the back end of his law practice. He was enjoying life in the country, but Eve Arden kept him alive. And I remember the first time I saw the film a few years back, I said, boy, that voice is it's Eve Arden. And it's like, I was so excited to find young Eve. And many of your viewers and your listeners also will recognize one of the key witnesses. One of the star witnesses in the film is played by Murray Hamilton, who is likely best known for his role as the mayor in Jaws. You're the mayor of Shark City. You're not going to believe it's real until it swims up and bites you in the ass. But he was the star witness for the defense, and was harassable, and Beegler got to him. Jimmy Stewart's character got to him and got him to break a little bit. And just a tremendous cast and a tremendous film at a time when people weren't doing those types of things, at a time when Preminger dared to push the envelope a little bit with language.
And language and subject matter. And again, those movies that I rattled off at the beginning prove it. He was fearless. And listen, and also let's not forget his wonderful performance in Stalag 17 as the Nazi who was in charge of the prisoner of war camp. And later on in the 60s, he was one of the Mr. Freezes on Batman. But he really had a great film run, and was this, expat from Germany, got out when things got crappy with the Nazis, and much like a Billy Wilder, and is this just brilliant guy who could turn it on as an actor, but also, again, fearless in this stage, in that Eisenhower genteel decade post-war of, let's take things easy. Not Preminger, man. He was right there. Hey, right now, rape. We're going to talk about rape for the next 2 hours, whether you like it or not. And again, very effective, very powerful. I don't know if you ever saw it. There's a wonderful documentary about Preminger called Anatomy of a Filmmaker. And Burgess Meredith narrates it because he's in advise and consent. But they got Jimmy Stewart on camera, and he's like, when I made the movie, my dad had heard about it and said, I can't believe you made a dirty picture. And I went, no, Dad, it's not a dirty picture. And he goes, I really had to sit him down and sit with them. And then he understood. But, again, that's an old-fashioned guy from probably the turn of the century. So, yeah, I mean, again, on its face, you are like, oh, my God. Like you said about the underwear, that's like one of the great scenes. And by the way, another wonderful actor in the film who really wasn't an actor, Joseph Welch, everybody, played the judge. Danny, you know Joseph Welch's backstory?
Yes, the country judge who lost control of his courtroom on a number of occasions and kept threatening both prosecution and defense. But yeah, that was fun. He had country wisdom.
Well, I don't know if you know about his real world background. He was the attorney in the Army McCarthy hearings, and he has that wonderful soundbite when he is shutting down Joe McCarthy when everyone's like, look, this whole communist witch hunt is bullshit. And he's like, that's enough, Senator. You've said enough. Have you no decency, sir, at long last? And I mean, really, this amazing footage of newsreel of him just crapping on who you crapping. A Dan McNeil feature on his score show. But it really is great. And I never really got the story of why Preminger picked him. But I mean, this is like getting Judge Ito after the OJ trials to be in your movie and be a judge. It was insane, but he's brilliant in it. He really is great.
Yeah, again, a terrific job by the director, and whoever cast the film did an outstanding job as well. And young George C. Scott really distinguishes himself in the picture as well. And when I get together with friends of mine who are students of film, not casual movie fans, but people like you and I, John, who are students of film, I always enjoy having conversations about who would be on this Mount Rushmore or who are the three greatest in this capacity. But I would challenge you to show me an actor who is more accomplished in the 20th century, who did more than Jimmy Stewart did for his industry. He is the MVP of the 20th century, and I don't think there's anybody within spitting distance of him. I think what he did in film is comparable to what Wayne Gretzky did on skates, because Gretzky is the NHL's all-time leading scorer. If you take away his goals, he still is the all-time leading scorer. I think that's what Jimmy Stewart did to his rivals, and he was a wonderful guy. He didn't look at things as individual accomplishments. He served his country. He was the all-American boy. But whether he is playing, an attorney or a down on his luck, it's a wonderful life, Jimmy Stewart. He turns in performance after performance.
I'm with you, man. Absolutely. And back to Scott, this is very early in his film career, and right away that magnetism and that poise, Mr. Dancer from Lansing. And it's great because also there's the other technically lead DA, and that's played by this guy Brooks West. And I'm like, this guy's perfect because this guy, I mean, look at that face. That's an antagonist. That is somebody that you're going to be against. But the reason why he was or I think one of the reasons, and I think this is cool of Preminger putting him in the film, he's married to, ladies and gentlemen, Eve Arden. That's Eve Arden's husband. And he doesn't have a lot of credits in acting. In fact, about a decade later, he was on Eve's sitcom, The Mothers-in-Law, and did a thing. But other than early TV, he was on a show called My Friend Irma that was based on a radio show and a Martin and Lewis movie. But other than that, he was a big producer. But it's kind of cool that he put him, and he was perfect as this guy who was over his head trying to argue with Jimmy Stewart. And that's why they brought Mr. Dancer from Lansing to really do the heavy lifting.
They had to go to the bullpen to bring in the big right-hander from that big city town of Lansing, because the lead prosecutor was a bit of a boob. I mean, let's call it what it is. He was overmatched, and he needed the help that and you're so right about George C. Scott. Boy, did the camera love him. It found him, and you couldn't take your eyes off of him. The charisma, the jut jaw, just a commanding presence on camera.
Quiet intensity. Just his oh, there's no need, Your Honor. I mean, and just this almost, I mean, you can almost see he's frowning here, but you can almost see him smirking if you really think about it. And there are so many wonderful scenes of him cross-examining people, including Mrs. Mannion. Also, by the way, I love that Jimmy, because she's a smoke show. We can't let her look like this and also has got this reputation of flirting. So initially, when Lee Remick is in court, she looks like this.
Mm-hmm.
And they put the heavy glasses on and the big hat on and hide everything as much as they can. And in fact, they make her kind of reveal her vivaciousness. And then all of a sudden you get wham. It's like, all right, inviting
In the
target.
courtroom, they asked her, and I don't know if this sort of thing ever would go on in a courtroom. Boy, I was married to a lawyer for 19 years, and talk about a fast way to ruin a film is watch a film about a courtroom, involving a courtroom scene with a lawyer, because they will point out all of the inadequacies and the things that just never would happen. But you remember when Biegler asks her to remove her hat and her glasses and let her hair down, how shocked everybody in the courtroom was, because she went from that librarian look to that look right there to a saucy mama in no time. And she pulled it off with authority too, and she knew it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the thing, and that's, I think, the conundrum that Jimmy Stewart has to deal with, that Biegler has to deal with, because and also this is, I mean, today society thankfully has changed, and no, rape is rape, period. But this is sadly that era of, well, was she asking for it, and how responsible for her demeanor and presentation was. She was an inviting target. Barney Quill, seemed to be willing, and also they talk about how she's playing pinball and swinging her hips back and forth, and it's Murray Hamilton's testimony and everything.
Yeah.
And again, in 1959, that was like kind of a acceptable, like, yeah, but the woman was kind of, flirting herself, therefore, which of course, again, thankfully, society has properly changed. But that was the problem back then, and that was the problem for Jimmy Stewart in terms of, no, this is a victim. And the other thing, too, is the defense for temporary insanity, which, again, I imagine in 1959 was still relatively new, as people were really getting into more psychology. And by the way, young Ben Gazzara, another unsung, wonderful character actor, great career right through his death. Fantastic, as you know, in Roadhouse back in the 80s, but great movies and television in the 60s and 70s as well. And a big fan and friend of John Cassavetes and Peter Falk, and the three of them would make movies together. I'm a big Gazzara fan, and I think he has a really tough thing of showing. There's almost I mean, we could spoil the film, Dan. I mean, my God, it's almost 70 years old or whatever. But there really is this like thing of, are the Manions playing with the truth a bit? And no, did Gazzara really know what he was doing, or was he really temporarily insane? Again, it's Jimmy Stewart's job to get him off, but again, their behavior belies that kind of testimony.
Yeah, it does. And when Barney Quill is giving his testimony on Laura Mannion's behavior the night of the
Quill's dead. You'll forgive me for correcting you.
Yeah, that was Alphonse Paquette. Yeah.
Oh, sure, of course, yes, yeah. Murray.
Barney Quill is dead, and Murray Hamilton, there he is. He's giving the testimony about how, from the she had it coming sort of line of thinking, she was swooshing her hips wildly. He describes her as, to bump the machine to give it English, and she was thrusting her hips, and he repeated that a couple times, and boy, perish the thought that a woman would take off her shoes while playing pinball. And that was part of his testimony to try and undermine the credibility of the rape victim. And it's a touchy subject, and it's something that makes people, it should make you uncomfortable. It should make all of us uncomfortable when we watch sort of this thing, because it's part of human behavior that hasn't stopped and is central to the storyline in this picture, which is one of my favorites of its era. Man, you talk about a great decade for movies. The 1950s certainly were that, and I would have to put this one up there with my favorites of the decade.
I absolutely agree, Dan. Ben Mankiewicz, when he's on Turner Classic Movies, talks about 2 years prior to this movie in 59, and that's 1957, and points out movies like Sweet Smell of Success with Burt Lancaster and other films. And that's the thing. There are movies like this that, and good storytelling. And I've really been harping on a lot of modern television shows. And I say this as a card-carrying liberal. It's better to make you debate and think. And this movie, because of the behavior of Gazzara and Remick in 1959, it's like, well, wait, and exactly what Murray Hamilton is testifying on, Alphonse is testifying on, is, yeah, but wait a minute, is it right that this woman is acting this way? And it opens a debate. Even though we are on Jimmy Stewart's side, we are on Lee Remick and Ben Gazzara's side, there's still enough of their behavior that it's like, these aren't nice people. And Murray has a small point of, hey, if you're selling it, and again, I'm not saying this, that it's justified of what Barney did, but again, it's like this opened up a question. That's what good storytelling and great characters should do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're making me want to watch the film now. We should sit down in Ben Mankiewicz's chair and roll on this.
Absolutely. Another wonderful, surprising cameo. And again, this guy doesn't get enough credit for all of his other roles. But Floyd the Barber himself, ladies and gentlemen, Howard McNear as the medical examiner, again, with very clinical and very racy for 1959 descriptions of finding sperm and and things in Mrs. Mannion's underwear, panties. So they have to, all right, we're going to say this word, and I know the court is going to get very silly about it, but we're Mrs. Mannion's panties, and everybody laughs. He's like, all right, you got it out of your system. I don't want to hear it anymore. But yeah, I love Howard McNear, man. And I love him as Floyd, but he's great in this.
Yeah, and that's 2 years before Andy Griffith went into production. Griffith, of course, being produced in 61 through 67, I want to say, was its era. And at the end of his career, he had so many health complications. He was having trouble even being a part of the shows, but good old Andy Griffith, true to his character, said, we are going to keep Floyd propped up and we're going to get him as involved as we can in these last couple of years of shoots. And to his credit, they did that. Although I know we're getting off topic. That show to me was at its best when it remained in black and white. Once Opie stopped being cute and Howard Sprague got involved, the show lost its steam.
You're not alone in feeling that way. I find myself a color episode Andy Griffith apologist because I am agreed with you. Those first 5 seasons, and really it's as soon as Barney leaves that it really starts having issues. But and I agree, Howard was no Floyd. They were together for a while, but really about Howard McNear, you're absolutely right. And if people watch the color episodes, Floyd is sitting a lot because he had a stroke. And that's also why, as he got older, I mean, he was faster and spacey in the black and white days, but at the end, oh, hi, Andy. Oh, and it's like, well, yeah, the poor guy had a stroke, but God bless Andy Griffith for going like, hey, we love Howard McNear, and we're going to make sure he still has a great income to get through this. And really, I think extended his life probably in a lot of ways, going, Howard, we'll just shoot you sitting down. It'll be fine. And it was fine. And I mean, that's why even the color episodes, as bad as they are, the ones with Floyd are still, oh, B, your azaleas came out so beautiful. And just that wonderful delivery, man.
I've got a little Andy Griffith trivia show trivia for you. How did Andy and Barney know each other?
They were cousins.
They were cousins. It's only mentioned in the very first episode and never mentioned again.
Yep. Well, and also Andy really went from, because, as you know, and I don't mind the Andy Griffith tangent because, again, I think it's part of the Howard McNear thing and also reflects on how smart Griffith was. He was coming off of No Time for Sergeants on Broadway and the film, and also his novelty record albums as Country Bumpkin. And that first season, you slowly see him change from, happy country Andy to more of the straight man and recognizing I'll be the straight guy and let all these wonderful character actors bounce off of me. And that's what made it the great show that it was. And Howard McNear, massive deal with that. All the townspeople. And I love that about him and the show.
When you watch the old episodes of the Andy, you don't have to watch too many in a row before you find an A-list star roll into Mayberry in a convertible, and maybe it's cocky college kid Bill Bixby who is speeding, or maybe it's the manicurist Barbara Eden. Jack Nicholson was in an early episode of Andy Griffith, and yeah, there are a lot of stars who make their appearances.
Another courtroom story in that when an Aunt B's on the jury, and I don't know, I think that Jack Nicholson boy is I think he's innocent, and she turned out to be right. Thank you. And also, Danny, who's the guy that was in Easy Rider that was Barney's cousin that could never do anything right? And he's got those like fucked up eyes. Pardon me.
Oh yeah. I can't pull the name. I can see his face, but I can't pull the name.
Easy Rider might be one of your movies that you knew everybody top up and down.
Yeah.
Oh, now we forgot another interesting early role for a young woman who at the time was known as Kathy Grant, and she is one of the key witnesses that really makes. And she's difficult to find, but eventually they get her on the stage, and it really. Up on the court and upends the whole case with her testimony, and you know who that is, Danny. Really, I'll let you tell everybody.
It's Mary Pallant.
Well, that's her character's name. You know
that's all she is to me. But her underpants were famous in the film too.
That's true. That's actually true. Dan, this is later on became known as Catherine Crosby, the second wife of Bing Crosby, and. All those Minute Maid commercials that Bing made in the 70s, that's him and Kathy and their lovely 3 kids. So, Minute Maid in the shade, my orange juice. Make a lot of money from this thing. But, it's crazy. A good friend of mine worked in L.A. for a long time, and Kathy was trying to put together a one-woman show of photos and home movies of Bing, and she hired my buddy Andy to help her kind of choreograph the production and everything. And also, I got to say, Kathy Crosby, decent singer. And it was kind of neat. But I think once she married Durbingle, is like, all right, he's the star.
Mm-hmm.
He's the moneymaker. And also, I think, again, I think they both wanted a family. It's sad. His first wife, Dixie, much like Martin Short's character, Jiminy Glick, his wife, Dixie, sadly had a really bad drinking problem. And and Bing had like 4 kids with her, including Gary Crosby, and the other 3 boys, and all of them had really tragic endings. Another tangent, but really raised this second family with Kathy Grayson, and everything else changed.
My Dixie dear, Badfinger, ladies and gentlemen, resurrected by a television program 10 years or so ago. I believe that was the final episode of Breaking Bad, was it? When
yes.
A lot of young people discovered Badfinger for the very first time. And
You're funny.
It's a great song. Post is at 10. Just absolutely love Walking Badfinger. So let me ask you, I mean, if we're going to cover a decade, the 1950s being the topic, do you have a favorite film from the decade, or is it too difficult for you to dial in on one?
No, I mean, I'm happy to say, and I respect that, but I'm always like, I don't need to only make one. I mean, another great 1959 movie, North by Northwest, Cary Grant. A couple of years earlier, Bad Day at Black Rock, Spencer Tracy. One-armed Spencer Tracy being as intimidating as hell in another kind of weird little Western town. And I think that's an incredible movie. I mentioned Sweet Smell of Success from 57.
North by Northwest, I believe a lot of it was shot in Northwest Indiana before Route 41 was a major highway. Not to get off topic, but that includes a younger and much more handsome Martin Landau, much different Landau than the one we saw as Professor Petrovsky in the film Rounders. I have to go with, and I hate to be, chalk, because this was a highly decorated movie, but it's one that has not sustained the test of time. I don't think old film buffs know it, but ask anybody 50 and under what they think of All About Eve, and they'll say, what are you talking about? Who's Eve? Well, Eve, is just it's a magical 2 hour and 10-minute thrill ride. All About Eve was nominated for a record 14 Oscars. That has been tied twice. It's never been beaten, but two films share All About Eve's distinction as a 14-time Oscar-nominated picture. Can you name the other two films?
I'll guess Ben-Hur maybe is one.
No, you've got to think. Late 90s for one of them, and then one of them in more recent vintage that was expected to win the Oscar for Best Picture and did not, because everybody thought, well, Hollywood just loves stories about Hollywood. But La La Land did not get the Best Picture. It was nominated for 14 Academies,
wow,
as was Titanic in '97, which was a great year in film.
Sure. All right. And that's cool. That's really cool. But again, that 50s decade, I think, really did just turn out things. In fact, on this very show, I believe the last movie we did was, I always get it confused if it's The Big Country or The Far Country, Gregory Peck movie with Burl Ives won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor in that Western. And of course, I love that film because it gives me the opportunity to do my Gregory Peck. I'm a dude from the East, apparently now living in the West, and all the cowboys want to pick on me, including Charlton Heston and Chuck Connors. Great movie. Fantastic fucking movie. I love it. One of my, and honestly, Dan, this is why normally I always pick movies. I really don't know if Anatomy of a Murder is currently available on like a Tubi or on YouTube, even if you want to like sit through commercials and watch it on YouTube. But normally we do that. But I know this is like one of your favorite movies, and that's why I was happy to talk about it today, because I don't think, regardless, I literally, when I got my hair cut this week, the woman that cut my hair, she's like, I can't get into black and white movies. 32-year-old woman. I get it, but it's a shame because there are so many great, as you know, black and white films. Yeah, man.
You're missing so much by shutting the door on all of those pictures. And, not every film has to be visually intoxicating. We don't have to blow up buildings and have airplanes explode all the time for a film to tell us about the story. And that's what challenged the filmmakers of those eras gone by. They had to have a script and they had to execute the script. They had to pay attention to the small details, reactions from other actors when they do cutaways. There's so much more that had to go into the making of a story because you didn't have the enhancement provided by technology, whether it's simple technology from when we started seeing CGI get, its place in the movies to now AI. I don't know what's real and what isn't anymore. I can't tell.
It's going to get worse. Orson Welles, back in the late 60s, early 70s, when he had that series of conversations he did with Peter Bogdanovich, he's like, color is too pretty. And basically was saying subconsciously, and especially in that era when color was kind of newer and really started to dominate, he's like, you lose track subconsciously of the story and the performances when it's too pretty. And this is one of the reasons why, beyond black and white films in general, I'm fascinated by film noir, where a lot of those guys had shoestring budgets and really had to rely on the shadows that they projected to convey the mood that they were going for. And, and again, story and character were paramount to making a great movie.
Frank Darabont's use of color and the variations of color and shades to reflect mood, just so evident in The Shawshank Redemption from 1994, because everything is cold metal and brick and buildings made of stone. And that film could have been in black and white and nobody would have known the difference, really, because it was such a cold, dark picture. A man wrongfully convicted. He's going to spend the rest of his life in prison. And then you look at what he did, what Darabont did 6 years later with The Majestic. Most people won't give that film a chance because they don't believe Jim Carrey's capable of doing some dramatic work, and I would submit that. as evidence, he can.
Yeah.
Where the colors in Lawson, California are so vibrant and so bright. And it's a second chance for the young screenwriter who was suffering from amnesia after hitting his head in an accident. That's the role Jim Carrey played. The color just really pops in that film. And Frank Darabont used color like it was a weapon, because really, when you think about it, it is. When everything you use, everything that's at your disposal as a filmmaker has to be taken into account. And I assume the greatest of all time know that.
You know, and another thing about the great filmmakers of all time, they appreciate the classics. And Darabont, clearly, The Majestic is such a love letter to Frank Capra films and Preston Sturges films of the 40s and 50s. And believe it or not, Dan, one San Diego Comic-Con night, I went to a private party and actually got to have a couple minutes with Frank Darabont. I mean, it was so brief, and we were really talking about what he was doing at the moment, which was, and people don't remember this, he was very involved in the first season of The Walking Dead, the big AMC hit. And he, again, kind of had creative differences and walked away after that first season. But no, and again, this is why I love Scorsese so much, because he appreciates old films and does everything he can to restore them. I don't know how much you watch Turner Classic Movies, but the noir host Eddie Muller travels around the country with a noir film festival, and I've had the pleasure of having Eddie on this show and talking to him a few times in public and things. And film preservation is so important, and that's why. And again, we don't want to see these films lost. I mean, they're really important. Thankfully, Anatomy of a Murder is in safe hands, and the studio that owns it certainly understands how great of a film it is. And I can't think of any lost Jimmy Stewart films for that matter. But again, I mean, this is one of the reasons why we do the Scene Missing show, is to point out these films that have slipped through the cracks. And thankfully, the audience seems to appreciate it.
Yeah, when my kids were getting to the age where it was time to start unveiling real films to them, and all topics fair game, their reaction was very similar to what you were describing, as a woman who said, I don't want to watch a film if it's in black and white. And I challenged them to give it a try. And eventually I got my wish, but I think it would be their preference that a film be shot in color. And I can't remember which film it was that turned them. It might have been Citizen Kane, but I can't say for sure if that was the one that turned them. But, would I prefer to see a film in color? Sure. Am I not going to watch a movie because it's black and white? Hell no. I'd be cheating myself of some of the greatest art the industry's ever produced. I mean, It's a Wonderful Life, Citizen Kane, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. I mean, then that's just the Frank Capra collection I'm talking about right there. And then you've got all the great John Huston films with Bogart and Cagney and Alfred Hitchcock, who followed, and he did get into the color era as well. But go ahead.
No, I was agreeing with you, saying sure he did. I didn't mean to step on you, buddy. You're right. But also, by then, fine. That was just the studios were walking away from black and white, and by the time Hitch really got into color, I mean, well, it started a little earlier in the 50s and things, and also maybe it was a treat for him. It is interesting. I never really heard him talk about black and white or not, but every now and then we do get a new movie in black and white. I'm thrilled when it happens. I know there was that one with Clooney and Toby
Maguire.
Yeah, and I want to see like The Informant or something like that. But also I know like when Mel Brooks wanted to make Young Frankenstein, he had to go to a different studio because they're like, we're not going to shoot that in black and white. He's like, it's got to be in black and white. It's a parody of those great 30s and 40s Universal movies. It has to be. And thankfully, I believe it was Alan Ladd Jr., Alan Ladd's son, who was a big, important studio mogul. That's like, no, I get it. We'll do it. No problem. And it is interesting. Also, that is the other thing, and I love that about film. When we discover some of the Nepo babies that actually did contribute and became very important forces in film. And Alan Ladd Jr. really, there's a lot of great modern classics that thankfully got greenlit, including Star Wars, because Alan Ladd's like, yeah, all right, go ahead, do it, and then billions of dollars later, so.
Yeah, what in the, I'm thinking of films that were in the modern era that were shot in black and white. And it was Rumblefish with Matt Dillon and Mickey Rourke. Is that a black and white film?
And also The Outsiders.
I think The Outsiders, Raging Bull, all black and white.
1980, absolutely. Absolutely.
But, clearly the exception rather than the rule. But,
well, they would always have these ridiculous reasons why not. In terms, well, the projectors are really geared towards color. It's like, shut up. Or, well, we could shoot it in color and we'll diffuse the color. They said that to Mel Brooks at Columbia specifically.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, it has to be black and white. And then again, I'm glad he stuck to his guns and found a studio willing to do it. But no, and of course the artist that won Best Picture, the silent film. It's interesting, Danny. That is a movie that won Best Picture and truly now has slipped through the cracks. And it's a good movie, but I always find, as we're heading into award season, I always find it interesting, the films that sometimes win for Best Picture or something, as opposed to the one that everybody thought they would. Of course, Shakespeare in Love. Was that the same year as Titanic? I think it was 97. But of course, also LA Confidential, I believe, that same year.
97 was just stacked. You had Jackie Brown, which is my favorite Tarantino film because it's not gratuitously violent. For you Tarantino fans out there, that thought was for you. LA Confidential. What else came out that year? I mentioned Jackie Brown. Titanic. Good Will Hunting was 97. Wag the Dog was 97. I mean, it was a good year in film.
Honestly, Dan, Wag the Dog is certainly on my mind, literally in the last couple of weeks, given the Venezuela invasion and sadly the events of Minnesota, because all that stuff has moved the Jeffrey Epstein sex scandal off the front page. And as people are still demanding that information be released, well, now they got to worry about the audacity of a war, or an incursion in Venezuela and taking over the country, and the shooting in Minnesota that literally just happened a day ago. And I find the government's reaction and response to these things very Wag the Dog, and I love Wag the Dog. And it really, I would tell young people who maybe haven't seen this Barry Levinson classic with Dustin Hoffman and Robert De Niro, to really examine that film and that whole Up and Down. There's another great movie that is peppered with great character actors. Woody Harrelson's great in that movie.
Oh, Woody Harrelson was out there. Yeah, John Goodman, Alan Arkin. It's stacked.
Yeah, crazy. Actually, I think maybe you're thinking of oh God, now I'm blanking, with Ben Affleck.
Zero Dark 30.
No, that's a different one. That's a great movie too, though. No, it's got
Argo.
one word.
I'm
It's
thinking
a one
Argo.
word.
Argo.
What's that?
Argo.
Argo, of course. I was going to say.
Confused it with Argo. Yeah, when they were going to make a picture, they were going to similar concept, but wrong film. Yeah.
Well, and in that case, trying to do something good, that it was a fake movie to extract the Americans that were stuck in the Iranian embassy.
I'm glad you caught that. I was fusing movies.
Yeah. And again, that's all right. But no, that is Arkin and Goodman are great in that. But no, and oh God, I can't think of her. Anne Heche is great in Wag the Dog, and God, I love they have that bullshit section with all the marketing people, and it's Dennis Leary and Andrea Martin, and it's like, do you vote? No, I don't vote. I don't like the little room, and they go to Hoffman. Well, I always vote for the Oscars. Just Willie Nelson creating the "We Are We Are the World" kind of song for this terrible tragedy in Albania and everything.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Honestly, all right, folks. I know we're off Anatomy of Murder, but that's, if you haven't seen Wag the Dog, great movie. So,
Private Parts also was a part of 1997, and it's funny that when you look at the year you go back and look at which film was #1 at the box office. I've listed all these great films, and they hardly scratched. The films that made the most money were films like Con Air, because, don't ever underestimate the American consumer's ability to be the American consumer. He will line up and buy a bag of shit, even if you don't get rid of the smell. And yes, I'm talking to you, Con Air fans. And I got a kick out of it too. But I mean, come on.
Well, it's chewing gum. It's bubble gum, man.
Yes, it is.
I mean, and truly, we are in this period now with even streaming. And I don't know how do you have any opinion on the potential of Netflix buying Warner Brothers and what that may mean for theatrical releases?
I haven't spent any time thinking about it. As you know, I'm a movie man who is disgusted by television's presence becoming stronger and stronger. It has got such a clearly dominant grip on all of the interests of the best writers, directors, producers, performers in the film industry. Everybody is lining up to do television because that's what's hot, it's what's paying the most, and it's what people are doing, they think, to develop characters more. And yes, you can, over an 8-part series, develop characters more, but therein lies the challenge of the great director. Develop your characters in 2 hours and 15 minutes. You don't need 8 hours. You don't need 2 seasons or 6 seasons.
It depends on the subject, because I do think really since the late 90s, we've gotten a lot of great quality TV. We've also gotten a lot of shit. And also the thing that has bothered me specifically about streaming and how people don't go to movies anymore is we're losing the mid-budget movie. People are still making small independent films, and certainly they're making the $200 million films. And these numbers are ridiculous to any common person, but to ask to make a $30 or $40 million film and get an audience for it, an intense drama, like that's what Anatomy of Murder would have been if it was made today. It would probably be a $20 or $30 million film. You probably have to pay extra for Jimmy Stewart at where he was in his career. George C. Scott, though, was brand new, and everybody else was young enough in their careers, so it probably wouldn't have cost that much. But again, it's the story and the characters that really make this thing move. And I mean, I talked to my guests who are screenwriters and movie and television people, and yeah, man, no, good luck trying to make a $50 million mid-budget movie today. The studios aren't interested because there was a great documentary called The Blockbuster Imperative, which started with one of your favorite films, and we mentioned Murray Hamilton being a big part of it, Jaws. That's really when things really got big or started to get big. Star Wars following a couple of years later, and now they are all chasing that $1 billion gate, which I find obnoxious. That's an expectation. They make these superhero movies, Danny, and you know I love them, but it's like, oh, Superman only made $700 million. Only? Fuck you. Fuck you.
Only. No kidding.
And that's truly the studio disappointment. Oh, we made this movie and it only made $500 million. Yeah, that's $500 million. Yeah, but the Star Wars movies made billions. Yeah, that's Star Wars. I mean, there are certain franchises that, yes, I mean, we'll see what happens with the Mandalorian film that's coming out later this year in the spring, and if it can continue the Star Wars trend, because even the shitty ones, the last 3 sequels, as bad as they were, they still made a shit ton of money because it's Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah, people love their Star Wars. There's no question they will show up to support it. I'm not among them.
Does Patrick like the superhero stuff or anything?
Yeah, we occasionally do the superhero stuff, as long as I know it's not going to be too bloody. And he's intellectually capable of knowing what's real and what isn't. Still, I wonder what his thoughts are when the demons come late at night and he has bad dreams and he doesn't verbalize his dreams or a lot of other things. So that's always something that I'm going to be a little bit sensitive to, and probably was a little bit too too lenient early on to show him even something as innocent as Dances with Wolves. There are killings in Dances with Wolves, and some of them rather violent. And I had to explain to him that sort of thing happened a long time ago, but that doesn't mean he's not going to be haunted by it in the middle of the night.
So. I get it. I mean, really, in a very innocent way, when Ghostbusters came out, my nephews and nieces were young, and my cousin is like, "Is it okay to take them?" I'm like, "Of course it is." Well, there's some really intense ghost moments in Ghostbusters where, like, the ghost librarian turns into the skull, and and all that. And my cousin's like, "They had nightmares for a month," and I'm like, "I'm sorry, Uncle Buck again." Leading the children in the wrong direction. No, I'm sure the slasher movie is fine. Go ahead and take them to it. I'm sure it'll be great for them. Anyway, we could wrap up, my man, because, again, this is such a wonderful film. If you've never seen Anatomy of a Murder, we can't recommend it enough. And it really is this wonderful, intense courtroom drama. Despite there being rape in it, there is no violence other than talking about violence in the film and a murder. It's a wonderful story. It is incredible performances, directed by this man, Otto Preminger, who knew what he was doing when it comes to movies like this.
Mr. Freeze. I love it that you added that to his bio. Always leave them laughing, Mr. Freeze.
Well, my audience is ready for some comic book and superhero talk. So
sure.
It's
Would you like to play the role of Mr. Freeze? Would I?
Would you?
Would you?
I can't think of a superhero that Jimmy Stewart would be. He's just too good, and also he'd look ridiculous in a suit. But I mean, the guy's probably 140 pounds, dripping wet at best. The tall beanpole.
What would Jimmy Stewart play? He would have to be the mastermind behind it all. He would have to.
Yeah, kind of a leader. You guys go ahead and fight. I'll be at the headquarters.
Scissor pedals.
Exactly. Absolutely. Dan, this is great, man. I really appreciate you coming on. This is a lot of fun.
Hey, you give me something to do every now and again, Shaky. Thank you for giving me the opportunity, and thank you for your listeners and viewers who have watched and listened, and for supporting your projects over the years. You've been doing this. You were on the ground floor of this here podcast, and way back when. And I have to give you credit. You got an enormous head start on the rest of the pack, and you have not looked back. So kudos to you, Mr. Word Balloon.
Well, I missed being on the air, the times the opportunities that you gave me, both at the Loop and at the Score. And I liked hosting, and I liked being a talking head. And when those jobs dried up in broadcasting, thank God podcasting came along. And I'm like, I don't need a company behind me. I can do this on my own. And 20 years later, I'm still doing it, and I'm very happy. And I love, you'll forgive me, Danny, but I love that the media companies are still banging their head against the wall, and they still don't quite get it, other than repurposing their on-air product, which is good, and I think they should do that. But they can do so much more, and even sell it, and it escapes them. It escapes.
Well, that would involve somebody who actually wants to knock on the door and sell. Good luck.
Yeah, but there are young, hungry salespeople. Honestly, I'll tell you off the air the guy I'm talking about. But I remember him saying, we don't want radio doesn't want to get new audience. They want to hang on to the audience they have. And it's like, well, that's a cradle to the grave kind of attitude. And you won't be surprised when I tell you who said that. And I'm just like shaking my head, going, "Man, you do not get it." And thankfully, he's out of radio. So, and a lot of those naysayers are out of radio now. So, but I can gripe on my own time, Danny. I won't waste your time with my bullshit.
That's okay. We can program another show, Gripes.
Well,
Gripes.
You know,
We
and
can
also,
open the problems window. That was a great bit that Spiegel and I never actualized. There was actually a physical location at the United Center that was called the problems window. And Matt and I got such a kick out of that. We thought we would open one on the air, the problems window, where people could call us with anything that in our audience didn't quite pick up on it. And it kind of died on the vine, but I believe it has enormous potential. That and what's in the vending machine. I never got that off the ground either.
you know, Comic-Con, San Diego, as big as it is, Sunday afternoon, they have a gripe panel of, all right, what are we doing wrong? What should we do more of? And it's great. And honestly, they get good, positive, it's people that are complaining, but they get good feedback of like, oh, okay, never thought of that. Thank you.
It's people who are complaining. People love to complain. Gives them something to do.
That would be you just described today's social media, Danny. Well done. It's
true. All the more. I'm on like 3 months not having opened up Twitter or Facebook, and those were the only two I did. I think I have an Instagram account, but I've never used it, and I feel great that I've been off of it. I don't feel like I've missed anything. And certainly do not miss the hand wringing, because that does nobody any good.
You're working on a new book?
I am. I have several unfinished books that need to be finished. You know, you've got to, I'm borrowing a little from this one to put in that one, and a little from this one to put in that one. And yeah, I should have something new to be enjoyed by tens of readers everywhere by spring.
But you have one book that's out there, right?
I have 2 books I've published. Yeah, the book of Chicago sports lists, I did with Ed Sherman in 2009. And I published I Bear Witness in conjunction with a 10-game Bears losing streak last year.
Right.
Timing is everything, they say.
Yes. Well,
so
thank God
the
fortunes have changed for the Bears. We'll see how they do this Saturday as we're talking with the Packers in that first round of the playoffs. You know,
I think they'll get pumped Saturday. I think they'll lose the game because it's the Packers, and that's what the Bears are supposed to do when they play the Packers, lose.
Well, and also, the Packers are coming for revenge the way that final season game against the Packers went. Even I know this, as Chet Kopic used to say, if they're not wearing boxing gloves, shaky nose dick. And it's like, he's not out. But thankfully, through your tutelage and Mike North and some of the others, I can watch to a general analytical point. And my feeling is that, especially the way they took out that quarterback for the Packers, they're probably coming for blood. And they're going to be
so Chet acknowledged that, but Ron Gleason 6 years later says, let me put you in charge of the Bull and the Bear and have you distribute the ball.
I was
radio.
Not even that, Danny. It was just basically be happy idiot puppet next to them. And I'm like, can you let me drive? And I'm like, I don't want to get involved in the conversation. I'm just coming in and out of commercials. No. They've got to learn. Nobody wants to hear anybody.
I thought you were there. I thought you were summoned to drive the show because they didn't know how.
No, he wouldn't. That was our. Forgive me, everybody. This is my big radio moment where they hired me to be a sidekick on that show, and I'm like, let me be the announcer. Hey, we're back. We're talking about the Bears, guys. What do you think of X? And then I'm not there until it's time to take a commercial break. Basically, George Fenneman and You Bet Your Life, or any sort of studio announcer. Didn't want that. Wanted me to just do funny voices.
You have 3 sidekicks on a show. 3
Costellos in need of an Abbott. And finally, they hired Jim Mamelo instead. A great guy. Never bummed that they finally let Jim do what I wanted to do. But I'm like, that's kind of what I was trying to talk to you guys about. And, of course, Jim had enough sports knowledge that he could contribute as well. But that show was on the air, folks. It was 2 great guys that made great number 2s. But you need a straight man. You need an Abbott. You need a George Burns to kind of drive the ship. Anyway.
Radio, it's red hot. We'll do a film again next. We did 1959 today. Maybe next week we come back, or next time you have me on, we can get something a little bit more current in. Maybe we can go to 1967 and discuss Stewart Rosenberg's Cool Hand Luke.
It'd be my pleasure. Absolutely. It's called Scene Missing because I do want to not do the obvious ones, but again, from a generational standpoint, I'm sure a lot of people have forgotten about Cool Hand Luke. So that'd be a great movie for us to do. Absolutely. And we'll have a good discussion about what's wrong with radio, because radio, sadly, has, I don't know what, it needs to change again. Just like it did with the encroachment of television, radio needs to change again if it wants to stay vital.
No doubt.
Not our problem. Not our problem. Dan,
all right, brother. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. I will be back next week with a whole batch of another bunch of shows. Monday, by the way, Word Balloon Book Club. We'll be talking about Darwin Cook's The Hunted with Brian Bendis, and that is happening. I got to do the math. That is happening at 11 o'clock Eastern time, and 10 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Pacific. So join us for that. Until then, everybody stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.